Sorry if I sound a little off. I've been battling a cold for the last few days, so if my voice is a little weird, that's why.
There is no Dana, only Zool. Are you a god?
Everyone knows Stephen King, the literal king of horror literature. Even his non-horror stuff is great, but the inevitable movie adaptions can be a mixed bag. Sometimes they do the book justice, sometimes they fall short of expectations. For every Carrie, there's a lawnmower man. Some of my favorite movies are Stephen King adaptions. Shawshank, The Shining, Christine, Stand By Me, Carrie, It, The Green Mile. List goes on. But you could say I'm obsessed with this one. This is Misery.
Hammer time!
James Caan is Paul Sheldon. He's a writer. He got popular writing a novel series about a woman named Misery. I guess her parents were trying to tell her something. They named her brother Broken Condom. Misery is like those cheesy Harlequin romance novels. Or 50 Shades of Grey, back when they only had about 12 shades. But Paul's sick of writing misery books. So he's writing a completely new book. Whenever he finishes a book, he smokes a single cigarette and drinks some Dom. He likes to write in isolation, in an old cabin he sublets from Johnny Depp. Look out, tree! It's really snowy, roads are treacherous, and snow tires are for chumps. He loses control and he crashes. Well, time to decide which finger to eat first. But someone comes to his rescue, and they make out.
Where?
He wakes up to the face of his savior, Annie, played by Kathy Bates, his #1 fan. She seems so sweet. She's a former nurse, she's giving him pain meds, and she patched up his legs. Kinda, I didn't say she was a great nurse. His legs are just awful. They look like undercooked Jimmy Dean sausages. He does have people who know he's missing and are worried about him, like his editor. Can't let that meal ticket go, can we? She calls the local sheriff in the area he disappeared, and he's happy to help the famous white guy. Why do movies always use a straight razor? We start expecting someone to get slashed. Have I mentioned how much Annie loves Paul's Misery books?
I've read everything of yours.
Annie loves Misery, the character. She's dying to find out what happens in her next book. Paul lets her read the manuscript he'd been working on while they wait for the next Misery book to come out. She doesn't like it.
The swearing, Paul.
There's a lot of swearing in the book, and Annie has an aversion to curse words. Her YouTube channel will be swimming in advertisers.
Give me a bag of that effing pig feed and 10 pounds that bitchly cow corn.
The sheriff rides with his deputized wife. Hot. They're adorable. Careful, this is how Thinner started. Misery's Child now in stores. Can't wait to see how it ends. In this book, he kills off Misery. He's ending the book series. Guess how well that's gonna go. Guess who got to the end of the book?
How could you?
Misery dies in childbirth, and Annie is not a fan. She's just livid.
I don't want her, bitch! I want her!
Slamming the bed, throwing stuff. She's scary. Kathy Bates is brilliant. Now it's apparent Paul is her prisoner.
Because if I die, you die.
She leaves, and he tries to haul himself out of bed. And you feel it. He's locked in. It's not like he could go anywhere. She finds him on the floor the next day, and she's sweet as pie again. She's still kind of pissed about Misery, but she thinks he can redeem himself. But first, he needs to burn his new manuscript.
You must rid the world of this filth.
If he won't do it, she can always set his bed on fire. So he burns his manuscript.
Oh, my goodness! Goodness!
Annie's hysterically freaking out over the ashes flying all over. She just doesn't swear. It's all YouTube-friendly, goodness gracious, and heavens to Betsy. Missed one. She's still, cool and makes with the drugs. But he starts saving it for the weekend. Annie gives Paul a wheelchair to get some exercise and stretch those legs. And an electric razor so he can shave his own damn face. She also sets up a new home office for him so he can write his next book about Misery coming back from the grave. Zombie Misery. Are you listening, Mr. King? Here, I stole this from Tom Hanks. She brings him all kinds of supplies, but she has the wrong paper.
I can't work on this paper.
Any other crucial requirements that need satisfying?
She gets a little defensive, and her paper costs the most, so that should have been the best, but it's still really good beating paper. This was all a ruse to get Annie to go back into town and leave him alone, because he spotted a hairpin on the floor. He uses it to pick the lock to get out. He explores the rest of the house until he finds the phone, which is purely decorative. He knocks over a tiny porcelain penguin that he catches before it breaks, but he puts it back wrong. Only a lunatic would notice the difference. She got the entire collection and his autographed pic. Still kind of sweet. Pray she never discovers Sutter Kane. He grabs more of those sweet, sweet opiates. He can't fit the wheelchair into the kitchen, so he drags himself across the floor. Oof. You feel it. You feel it. The back door's locked. Again, not like he can go anywhere. And he comes back, and Paul has to drag himself back to his room, relock the door, and try to look innocent. Paul gathers the painkiller powder into a little paper pouch. This dosage is known as a Charlie Sheen. Paul starts writing, already working on the HBO remake.
I'm sorry, Paul. This is all wrong.
Annie's picky about details, like how to bring a character back from the dead. I have always wanted to do this. All right, on tonight's top 10 list, top 10 ways misery can come back. Number 10, reborn on planet Genesis. Number 9, brought back by the Crow. Number 8, resurrected by the Matrix of Leadership. That's a Transformers reference. Number 7, resuscitated by cats. That part never made sense to me either. Number 6, turned into the Winter Soldier. Number 5, Wonder Woman made a wish. Number 4, becomes Robo-Misery. Robo-Misery. Number 3, her body is struck by lightning. Work for Jason. Number 2, slapped back to life by Ed Harris. That would probably work on me too. And the number 1 way misery can return is somehow misery returned. She does like his next attempt when she comes back as Misery the White. That night they celebrate with dinner. They have wine, and when Annie's not looking, Paul tries to slip her a Mickey, but she spills it before she can drink any. The look on his face says it all. Nobody likes wasting drugs. Writing montage. That better be a banger of a book, man. While Annie's out cruising, Paul sneaks out again and steals a butcher knife, as if she wouldn't notice a giant knife missing. Meanwhile, the sheriff is trying to find Paul by reading misery books. That's good detective work. Paul finds a scrapbook and we learn more about Annie's past. People seem to die around her. She was a pretty big deal in nursing, apparently. And she killed a few babies. Paul is ready, man. He's not going down like some baby.
Luca!
Paul, I know you've been out.
Fucking penguin ratted him out. He's also strapped down to the bed. To keep Paul around longer, she needs to discourage his wandering around. His legs are getting better, so let's do something about that. Yep, that scene. She hobbles Paul by breaking his ankles with a sledgehammer.
It's for the best.
Annie, please! That's gonna need a shit ton of ibuprofen.
God, I love you.
I think we should see other people. I guess the misery research paid off. The sheriff recognizes a quote from a local, Annie. The same quote Misery spoke in one of her books. Paul is adjusting to life with powdered ankles. Looking into Annie's recent purchase history, the sheriff discovers she'd been buying typing paper, which would have been odd for her, not to mention the new hobbling hammer she bought. The sheriff homes in on Annie, and she's quick. She sedated Paul and stashes him in the basement. Now that is a strong woman. She puts on the sweet act, feigns ignorance about his disappearance. She claims the paper was for her, and she's trying to write her own book.
There's a shortage of pleasure on the planet these days.
Depends where you look.
I know how he wrote.
Oh god, she's making fan fiction. Meanwhile, Paul is out cold in the basement. The sheriff starts to leave, and I'm pretty sure she poisoned that cocoa. Paul manages to make some noise that gets the sheriff's attention, and he finds Paul in the basement. But Annie got her gun. Annie knows it's pretty much game over, so she has a murder-suicide in mind.
I put 2 bullets in my gun.
Great, ladies first. But Paul starts playing her right back, telling her that he does love her and is down with the plan, but first they must complete the book. While her back is turned, he keisters the lighter fluid, just crams it up there like a champ. So he works on the book. They're close to finishing. And whenever Paul finishes a book, he needs 3 things: the cigarette, the match, and the glass of Dom Perignon. Where'd she get Dom way out here? If she wasn't crazy, they'd make a cute couple. Paul gets to work. He throws the book on the floor, douses it with lighter fluid, and holds the last page hostage. The last page with all of Misery's secrets answered.
It's all right here.
Who she married? Who's her daddy? What's the deal with that smoke monster? He sets the book on fire and Annie's desperately trying to put it out. Paul's been working out so he can use the typewriter as a weapon. And those old typewriters were no joke. Tom Hanks has a room full of murder weapons. Sorry, baby, you're not my type. They struggle, and Annie cusses. I'm gonna kill you, you lying cocksucker! Then they wrestle on the floor, then he shoves book ashes in her mouth. It is glorious. She gets up to her feet, but Paul trips her and she falls headfirst into the typewriter. Damn, that you're not my type joke would have worked better here. Should have saved it. It's okay, she's not dead yet. He finally kills her with the heavy iron doorstop shaped like a pig. You reap what you sow. Still got it. 18 months later, Paul is alive, walks with a limp, and is a bestseller. His publisher asks him why he won't write about what happened with Annie. I think it's because it's too close to something Stephen King wrote. It doesn't mean Annie's still not on his mind.
I just want to tell you I'm your #1 fan.
I guess before Annie, she was the #2 fan, so she moved up.
Very sweet of you.
And that was Misery. Misery is a simple yet gripping plot that explores obsession, control, and the blurred line between reality and fiction. The characters are really interesting and well-defined. You feel Paul's pain, and you wince right along with him. And Annie is so creepy and unpredictable, you just can't look away. I also love the sheriff and his wife. Too much when he died. King giveth, king taketh away. As we learn more about Annie, her past deeds undermines the kindly facade and reveals a darker nature. And boy, is it dark. Rob Reiner's direction keeps you on edge, never allowing you to feel fully comfortable. You know, the edge of your seat kind where you're like, you always feel like something is wrong here, even before you know something's wrong. And Paul spends the majority of the movie in this room, and you're trapped in there with him. I had to do it. I had to do it. A fascinating example of obsession and delusion. Annie's increasingly unstable behavior is both terrifying and mesmerizing. Sweet and kind one moment, total psycho the next. Kathy Bates earned that 1991 Academy Award for Best Actress, for real. Even though it changed a few things from the book, nothing I felt took away from the movie. It even gives Paul a more active role in Annie's end. Misery is 5 Bs. Every aspect of this movie is gold. The direction, the performances, and of course the writing. Hi, Mr. King. The despair and the claustrophobia really makes this movie a classic, and you'll never appreciate your ankles more. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment the bell, you know, that usual YouTube stuff. This is theNewBee, and I'll see you later, kids. Toodles!
Thank you.